Hi, and welcome to my channel, Laura's Library Card. So it is time for another recent reads video where I discuss some of the books I have most recently read as a wrap up. So let's just dive right in. The first book I'm going to talk about is Royally Screwed. The author is Emma Chase, and I listened to this book on audiobook format. The summary synopsis is that His Royal Highness Prince Nicholas is in New York City, and he randomly meets a waitress, an American waitress named Olivia, and she is so beautiful and intriguing to him, and she has a sassiness to him. And so after sort of a not great meet cute, they agree to have a summer fling, and Olivia starts to get used to some of these elements that dating a famous person comes along with. And Nicholas knows that falling in love with Olivia is an impossible future. He can't marry her. She's an American. She's a commoner. So what will they do when they start to fall in love? I really wanted to read a royal romance. I feel like it has been a long time since I've read that, and I really enjoyed this, and I kind of want to read more royal romances after this. So if you have any, leave a recommendation down in the comments. I would have preferred a little bit more depth of character and emotional development in this book, but I really did enjoy the writing and thought that there was a good balance between the spicy levels and the emotional, interesting, wanted to see where it was going to go levels. I would have also preferred a little bit of a different ending, which I don't want to spoil here, because I felt like what happened in the book wasn't exactly true to Nicholas's character, but it did all work out for a happily ever after, happily for now situation. The next book that I'm going to talk about is The Water Dragon's Bride. This is a volume 1. This is a manga that is by Toma, and I accidentally found this book because I had been searching for The Dragon's Bride by Katie Robert, and this came up in my library search. So I was like, yeah, why not? It's available. So the premises is that the main female character is Asai, I think, and she's young. She's, 7 or 8, and she is sort of accidentally magically transported to another world where she makes a friend named Subaru, but his village ends up not liking her and sacrificing her to the water dragon god by throwing her in a lake, which is something they apparently do every year or every couple of years. The god is sort of intrigued by this sacrifice, but also he doesn't really show any compassion to her, and he is kind of sick and tired of all of the sacrifices that have been made over time, and he kind of arbitrarily declares that this girl will be someone that he makes his bride, but she's a child right now. So like I said, this was sort of an accident that I stumbled across this story. I felt like it was a pretty quick read and was a lot of setup. I am kind of confused as to why Subaru seemed so instantly enamored with Asai, and I was kind of I don't know, I thought it was kind of an interesting viewpoint to have the water dragon to be so detached from humanity. I felt like at the end of this volume, just kind of had a lot of questions as to where the story was going and a lot of the questions about this world, but I didn't really have strong feelings either way. The next 2 books that I read were Heartstopper Volume 1 and Heartstopper Volume 2. Heartstopper Volume 1 was a reread for me. I own it physically, but I don't even know where it is right now. And the premise for this, I read these sort of in anticipation of Heartstopper coming out and watching it on Netflix. The show is amazing. You should totally watch it. Heartstopper Volume 1 has Charlie as one of our main characters. The setting is high school. Charlie is gay and he is out, and he has gone through a history of being bullied, but he seems to be mostly over that. He meets Nick, our other main character, and they start to become friends, especially after Nick encourages Charlie to join the rugby team. Charlie is crushing on Nick, but Nick is straight, right? So this is an absolutely adorable story of figuring out your feelings, figuring out your own self-identity. It's super easy to love both of our main characters here, and I just want to wrap both Charlie and Nick up in big hugs. And we are starting to see some of the side characters here in Volume 1. I did feel like there's a lot of relatable elements to this book. Perfectly set in the high school setting. There's a lot of, does the other person like me back? Like, how does this other person feel right now? What are my own interests and my own questioning? I felt like all of those topics were super relatable, and this is just done so well. Alice Oseman is awesome. I dove right into Heartstopper Volume 2, which I had not read previously. And in this one, we are following Nick and Charlie after they have kissed at the end of Volume 1. And Nick explains to Charlie that he likes him and wants to kiss him more, but Nick is now kind of struggling with what this means about his own sexual identity and orientation. And Nick is asking Charlie to keep their relationship a secret while he works on figuring out himself, and they're both finding this difficult. This story continues in Volume 2 to be completely adorable. I liked the further expansion of some of the secondary characters, as well as learning more about Nick and Charlie, and I felt like Nick's journey of trying to find a label or a description for himself to be really relatable, as well as probably something that a lot of people go through. And I felt like, again, I just wanted to wrap both of these guys up in a big hug, and I felt like my heart was really going out to both of them, and it was easy to feel connected to them and their story as it starts to, burgeon and grow. The next book that I read was Playing for Keeps. This is by Kendall Ryan, and I read the ebook of this. I will be real with you, I don't remember a ton of this book, and I feel like that's one of the problems with it. The premise that I recall is that Elise is our main female character, and her brother is a pro hockey player, and this is a brother's best friend trope situation because Justin is Elise's brother's best friend and is definitely off limits, even though Elise has been crushing on Justin for years. And then Justin sort of at the start of this book has suddenly recently noticed Elise as a romantic / sexual partner, as a woman, and after they sleep together early on in the book, he can't get her off of his mind, so he is determined to find a way for them to have a relationship. I literally don't really remember very much more than that, so it's a good thing that that's kind of a vague premise, right? I ended up writing right after I read this book on Goodreads, unmemorable, low tension / too easy resolution, characters felt all over the place, was too much tell, not enough show, why did Justin feel that he could not be Elise's BF? And I'm glad I wrote that because I have no memory of this book otherwise, so there you go. Take that for what you will. The next two titles are both comics that I read. The first one was Victor and Nora, a Gotham love story. This was written by Lauren Myracle, and the illustrator was Isaac Goodhart. I picked up the physical copy of this just because I was trying to kill time in a library, and the premise of this is that it's set in Gotham. It's that Marvel, not Marvel, DC universe. Wow, don't come for me. Victor is our main male character. He tragically lost his brother in a fire years previously when he was young, when he was a kid, and his brother was, like a teenager. And Victor's heart is cold now until Nora, the main female character, walks into his life and he begins to fall in love with her because she has a quirky, caring personality. And they spend the summer falling in love with each other. It's a whirlwind young love romance. When he learns that Nora has a degenerative illness, Victor is determined to help heal her or care for her or cure her, and he's trying to figure out how his research into cryogenics could potentially help her with her illness. Like I said, I picked this up totally randomly. I definitely felt that I could tell that the illustrator was male or straight, or however you want to phrase this, because I just felt like Nora was multiple times in a very sexualized pose and like her kind of overall body shape. I felt like the story was fine, but it wasn't really robust enough or developed enough to either understand Nora's illness and what was going on with her, nor to develop the romance between them. It was just young love, summer romance. And one of the main topics that's happening in this book that's very heavy and could function as a trigger warning to you is that Nora is determined to to not undergo extreme living with this illness, and she knows it's a degenerative process, so she has been contemplating from the get-go that she will take her own life. And so I also felt like that element could have been really explored had this not been a graphic comic medium. I felt like some of the reviews classified this as sick lit, which I'm not really sure how I feel about that comment. I did feel like overall this book really did feel rushed and not fleshed out, and it was very much so a comic, and that's just not something I have a ton of experience with. So take this review with a grain of salt. And the last book I'm going to discuss in this video is also a second comic. This was a volume that was chosen for a comic club that I'm in because I'm trying to learn more about comics, but we read pretty, widely. This was Myracle Chavez, Made in the USA. The author is Kalinda Vázquez, and the illustrator was Carlos Gomez. The premise for this book is that America is our main female character, and she is busy fighting crime, but her powers seem to be on the fritz, and she rushes to her hometown of New York City to help save her family from the building that they live in, which is on fire. But it turns out this fire was arson, and that the perpetrator has actually been trying to get America's attention. And so we then find out who that person is and why they were trying to get a hold of America and what their reasons and purpose was. So I read this very fast for book club because I left it kind of late, because that's the story of my life. And I had honestly only recently seen the newest Doctor Strange video to even know who Myracle Chavez was. I liked her characterization in this comic, but like I said, I don't really have any history of knowing who Myracle Chavez is. I did like that there was also some LGBT representation in this book. I felt like again, I could kind of tell the illustrator was a man because it was a lot of sexualized poses and sort of just boobs all over the place. But for me, I felt like this story was a little bit too fast-paced. I wanted to explore and understand more of the bigger plot points and a little bit more about America's background and where she came from. And reading the reviews for this book, I felt that a common thread that I was seeing is that people who were comics lovers who did like Myracle Chavez and know her story felt like this retconned her backstory, and honestly she seemed sort of powered down in this book. So I can't speak to that, but I didn't feel that it was super interesting, and I just wanted a little bit more exploration of who America was as a character. But this is a comic, so it was very plot heavy and fast paced. So those are some of my recent reads. It was definitely comic and graphic novel heavy, but yeah, that's just sort of the mood that I happen to be in and the order that I happen to be reading things in at the time. So let me know if you have any thoughts on anything that I talked about in this video. Leave that down in the comments and I'd really appreciate it. Thanks so much for watching. Bye!